I always felt that I was here for so much more. And it's probably watching too many things like Moesha and Sister when I was younger. You know, when they went to all of the like high society stuff, Fresh Prince,
Yeah.
living in them big houses and stuff. I always felt like I deserved so much more.
Wow.
Probably very arrogant of me at
I
a
love
very young
it.
age, but I always just felt like, no, I'm supposed to be rich. What is going on here? This wasn't supposed to be
Wow.
my portion. So because of that, I always kind of just had this attitude of whatever it is that I want to do, just work it out. Like you have to work it out because there's not really any other option because I don't want this situation over here.
Yes.
But I don't necessarily know when that light bulb switched on and said, go and ask these people for money and they'll give it to you. But I've always been very tenacious with it. So I remember one of the sponsors that we had was HMV, and they didn't give us any money. They were the first sponsors that we had for our talent event. And I said, actually, how do I make people interested in this? I'm not interested enough. They don't know who I am. I'm not famous. Who cares? I need to get a brand that people are going to be excited about. At that time, HMV was uh, not what it is now, but it was very popular. So I said, can I use your logo? Let me use your logo and let me put my posters in your stores in the Midlands. And I said, I don't want any money. I just want this. They said, yeah, because I'm not asking them
You
for
don't
any
ask.
money.
Wow.
But then what that did is it meant when I then went to Sony
Oh
BMG,
my
when I went to
gosh.
Coca-Cola, when I went to Haribo, I could say, HMV is our headline sponsor. Now they're taking me seriously. They don't care about who my business is, but they know and understand who HMV is. So once I did that, everything else just seemed to be kind of, well, if HMV
Yeah,
said
yeah,
yes, then
yeah. It must be.
why wouldn't anybody else say yes? And that's kind of the approach that I've always
I love that.
taken.
I love that. Yeah, you really think outside the box because that's just such a clever move, right? They're not gonna say no because it's not costing them anything.
Yeah, and it
Wow.
worked. So yeah, that's just been it's been my philosophy, and as I said, I feel like I've lost it the last couple of years, but I'm getting it back
Yeah,
very
but
much
I
so.
guess that speaks to the whole motherhood journey, right? And becoming a new mum and having a new baby, that does have a big impact on
Yeah.
you and identity and all the rest of it. Can you speak to us a little bit about that experience?
So it's been an
Yeah.
interesting journey because I did it 9 years ago,
Mm.
and I've just done it again a year ago. Big gap.
Yeah.
And this time round feels like I'm doing it for the first time because the gap is so substantial. And I think the first time round when I had my daughter, I definitely, when you speak of losing yourself, that definitely happened because I don't necessarily believe it was because I had a child. It was because I had a child and no longer had my business. So my identity had been very much built around I am the CEO of this company. I am a multi-award winning entrepreneur. But now I'm sitting at home and I'm a mum and I'm a student. Who am I? And I definitely believe I had a significant confidence crisis. And what also happened is my personal brand at that time, before I'd had the baby, was quite big in the Birmingham area
Yes.
specifically. So I was doing speaking engagements and actually outside of Birmingham. I was traveling all over doing speaking engagements. I did a speaking engagement in Jamaica around that time. So my currency was quite high. Then I went and had the baby, sold the business. So I kind of went into obscurity. I just was in my house and studying. I'd go to some uni stuff, but that was basically it. So when I started the new business, and I didn't start it immediately, I began contracting for Innovate UK Edge, which is a department of the government that specialises in supporting businesses with innovation. So I was doing that under a contract with Coventry University. And I was going out and about, and nobody knew who I was. And it honestly had a massive impact because I was just like, what do you mean you don't know who I am?
A whole me.
Me, like, who was winning these awards? I was on the TV, I was in the newspapers, I was in these magazines. Why don't you know who I am? But I'd been gone for a number of years just in my house. And that really rocked my confidence, probably more than I even realized. It's only now that I'm really understanding how big of an impact it did have. And I was just very much afraid of so many things. So I've always been quite an introvert. And I recognized that I would have to do more networking. But I was so scared to do it because I'd kind of put my foot in and nobody knew who I was. And it was just a very like
Yeah.
awkward and uncomfortable feeling. So then I kind of moved away from that. I don't want to do that. Actually, I'm not going to do that. That's not pleasant. So instead, I just poured myself into working with my clients and trying to get results with my clients, which worked phenomenally. But it still didn't. I still didn't get back what I feel like I'd lost, which is really then how the whole "she's the boss, big boss energy," which is what I talk about a lot, came about. Because I'm like, you need to you need to get it together. What is going on
Yes.
here? This wallflower thing. I am introverted, but I'm not. I've never been somebody really, not since I've been an adult, that doesn't believe in my own source. And I don't think I believed in my own source. So I had to, it's weird. I wouldn't say create a persona. I think that's probably too strong. Like it wasn't a Daniela and she's the boss as a whole separate person. It was like actually she's the boss needs to be the version of Daniela that was out there at university going to HMV and saying, give me your
Give me your
logo.
logo.
And that's kind of how the whole thing around this big boss energy thing, because that's what I kept, big boss energy. Big boss energy says, if this is scary, you need to go at it at a much faster pace, 100 miles an hour, because actually you've got your daughter now. You can't be showing her that you're scared of everything. It doesn't make any sense. So you're going to have to get over this fear. I started telling myself, feel the fear and run towards it. Feel the fear, run towards it. Think big, take action, keep pushing. I had to kind of start to tell myself mantras to help me find myself. So therefore, when I had the baby this time round, I don't think I lost myself as much. It was still a bit rocky, but I managed to stay visible. I managed to stay present. I managed to do some phenomenal things, even when the baby was like a week old. I launched a new program, and not in a I'm out and about running around kind of thing, because that would be ridiculous. But I had trained some of my colleagues to deliver the program on my behalf.
Amazing.
So a week after the baby was born, that program launched. I was at home in bed watching on Zoom.
Amazing.
And yeah, so I feel that for many new mums, I think sometimes, you can kind of, I feel like we put so much of ourselves into our careers or into our businesses, and we wrap ourselves up and that is our identity. So therefore, when we have a baby and we're taken away from that, we can kind of feel a little bit disjointed, like what's going on here. And I think this time round, what was really apparent to me is whether you go away for 6 months, a year, whatever, what you do, who you are is still valuable, and you can't forget that.
Yes.
And that's been the difference in this time round, for sure.
Amazing. And so then just going back to what you were saying in terms of losing yourself and finding yourself and feeling the fear and pushing forward, can you give us examples of how you were able to come back to yourself and feel the fear and do it anyway?
So a few things. Number one, I started organising events again.
Okay.
So my founders dinners is something that I started a few years ago. And
so how old was your daughter when you started doing this?
24, 5.
Okay, so you gave yourself a few years of fully immersing yourself in the motherhood and studying, and then you was like, no, I need to get back to my
Yeah,
son.
well, so yeah, when I started working properly, she would have been 4, because it was just before she went to school. And yeah, so I started doing a load of things. Number one, trying to go to more networking stuff.
Okay.
I've never been good at it. But
Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even one of the things I went to a few years ago was part of CMI did a documentary on race.
What's CMI, sorry?
Chartered Management Institute.
Okay.
Somehow, I don't even know how I ended up being asked to be part of this, but they put me in the documentary and then said they wanted me to come to their celebration event at the Royal History Museum. I think it was a Royal History Museum. One of the big museums down here anyway in London. And I was just like, I don't want to go. Like,
oh, really?
I don't want to go because I don't know anyone. I was like, no, this is a fantastic opportunity. Stop being ridiculous. And I went, and it was fantastic. And there was people there randomly, and I think this helped. There was people there that recognized me and came over and was like, oh, hi, Daniela. I love your social media stuff. And I was like, oh, my gosh, people actually remember me now.
Wow.
And I also realized I felt quite comfortable when the focus wasn't on just networking. So one of the kind of tactics that I've used the last few years is going to events that are not networking events. So going to awards ceremonies, going to conferences, going to workshops, because actually now we have a common focus.
Yes.
And it's not, hello, I'm Daniella. I hate that.
Doing the business card exchange that you're never going to use.
It.
Yeah, it's so awkward.
Yeah, it's so awkward. But then I also recognise there's still value in that kind of close proximity networking. So I started the Founders Dinner. So I had the Founders Network, which was my community for clients, current and past. And I recognised that a few of them had some of the same challenges that I had in terms of not enjoying networking. So I said, well, actually, let me just do a dinner.
Love that.
Keep it intimate, but enough people that you can get connections. So we started doing that. And actually, I found I used to do events. My business was in events.
Yes.
I'm good at this. And I actually really enjoy it. And I guess part of my, sounds very dramatic, but my re-emergence was getting comfortable with hosting those events and recognizing you also a fantastic speaker.
Yes.
I then was asked to do a TEDx talk in 2022. I went to Nigeria on a trade mission. So there's been a sequence of
Wow.
things that have forced me well out of my comfort
Yes.
zone, that have forced me to reckon. Daniela, do you know who you are?
Reminding yourself of who you are. I love that.
Do you know who you are? The TEDx talk in particular, that was a crazy one because I wasn't supposed to do it.